let's talk about Jackie Trad. Now, the Australian newspaper had today an interesting piece, which is that the LNP, that apparently the Labor Party are weighing up the idea of, is Jackie Trad a net negative on the government in a 50-50 race, and with the Liberal Party now sending preferences to the Greens, which I think is disgraceful, as a way of getting rid of her. Well, she'd probably lose anyway, so do we move her out of the way or not? But I wanted to ask you guys a different question, because we've seen it with Campbell Newman, we've seen it with Tony Abbott, we've seen it with Kevin Rudd, when politics often can become about one person. Either an entire election or certainly a lot of media focus becomes about the removal of one person. Now, as a bloke who's run state campaigns, let's talk the Victoria a bit first here with you, Nicholas. What is the downside of deciding to go all in on your big bad, which is great for your base, for want of a better term, but to the people in the middle, do they feel the same way? Is there a danger when this stuff gets too nasty? Are there X factors when it's a woman? What's your advice to both the Labor and Liberal parties about Jackie Trad in Queensland this year?
Well, look, I think the first point to make is that Jackie Trad is not the Premier and she's not the leader of the Labor Party. Yes, she's a significant figure in Queensland politics, but, Treasurer. You know, we all follow politics very closely on this show. And yes, she's Treasurer, she's a senior person in the government and all of that. But most people, I don't think, are going to decide their vote based on Jackie Trad. They'll make a comparison of the leaders, and they'll think about the performance of the government to date, and they'll look at the offerings of the two parties going forward. But I don't think Jackie Trad is going to be the deciding factor. And if you went and hang your whole campaign on that, well, it's a pretty weak basis. I actually think that story today in that newspaper... that newspaper? Call it the Australian. Okay, in the Australian, I thought it was fake. I was trying to be polite, Paul Murray. I thought it was fake news. I mean, really, if you're going to move on Jackie Trad, you would have done it, 12 months ago. And she's still got strong institutional support in the party, so there's not going to be...
You want to talk about fake news? Yesterday, the front page of The Age was about a submission from the state. Their front page story was about a superannuation submission where the Herald Sun had real news about people who were dying in the streets from drug overdoses, like fair income. You want to talk about real news, fake news? Actually. Bloody hell. But we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, Michael, you've had your blather. Michael, let's get to this here. What are the dangers of turning around and hitting... one person, trying to make one person the focus?
Where would we be without the Australian, by the way, Nick? For goodness sake. Anyway, that's another story. Well, look, if Trad stays where she is, well, the Australian will publish stories that other newspapers and the ABC will not publish.
Correct.
That's the truth of the
matter. Intellectual diversity.
Correct, and that's what you get from the Australian. You don't get that. So many of the stories published in the Australian you do not even see in the Fairfax papers or on the ABC. So anyway, that's another argument. Yep. The answer is this, Paul. If Trad stays, Palaszczuk will lose. If Trad goes, Palaszczuk has a chance of being re-elected, because what she did is a perception of conflict of interest. We've heard those words very recently in Canberra. And not declaring the investment property when there was a major decision. She was responsible for the... Well,
don't forget, under their new disclosure laws, she would have been found in contravention. Yes. She would have been found guilty in a court.
Under the new rules.
Yeah.
And that was recommended by the Crime and Conduct Commission, as we know. But so what you've got is a situation where she's now become sort of a political pariah within the government. And the interesting thing was, in the paper today, the polling that was published showing how unpopular she was leaked from the Labor Party.
Of course.
Now that tells you all you need to know, that senior people in the Labor Party want to move on her. The problem for Palaszczuk is that she's got tremendous union support, and this is just going to be an ongoing war. But if she stays, I would think Palaszczuk will be defeated.
I mean, Paul Murray, this is the Straight Talk Express.
All right, we'll make it quick, because I want to give everyone a chance here. We're waffling a lot tonight, including me.
All right, okay. I mean, look...
Speak for yourself, mate.
The fact is...
I was being polite. We're all talking about Nicholas, but I was trying to make it about everyone.
I think it's important... There are 2 points to be made about this question. One, you've got a socialist government having trouble with a socialist member.
Ding.
And the second thing is that the biggest mistake, I think, that was made in preferences was when the Liberal Party gave preferences to the Greens in Victoria. They got Adam Bant up as a member in the House. Prior to that, you'd kept the Greens out of the lower house, which is as it should be, and now, for heaven's sake, he's the leader of the goddamn Greens. It was a big mistake, and I think it's a mistake.
Nicholas, give me a bumper sticker. I want to talk about something else.
Okay, so we all agree that Palaszczuk government's had a torrid 12 months. We all agree that Labor got wiped out in Queensland in the federal election. But, and here is the big but we haven't covered so far, there was a poll in Queensland on the weekend, and 50, guess what? 50. It's 50-50. Why is that? Because the LNP in Queensland is at war with itself over anthropogenic climate change. The LNP in Canberra is ripping the whole show apart, and Deb Freklington, their leader, is just not connecting with the public. So, notwithstanding everything that Michael and Bronwyn have said, it's 50-50, and on that basis, I'd say Palaszczuk's heading for a win at the next election.
But Michael, can I ask you, again, just a straight sort of how to read numbers question. In that opinion poll, undecided is the preferred premier by some margin. Does that mean they've broken up with the existing premier and they'll have a look, or does it mean they're not sold yet?
Yeah. So essentially what happens, the golden rule in politics, governments lose elections, oppositions don't win them. Effectively what the public does is they have a look at the opposition leader quickly. If he or she seems reasonable, then they'll vote against the government if they want to. If the opposition leader is a freak show like Jeremy Corbyn, then they'll look back very quickly. When they look at America and they see Bernie Sanders, they'll go back to Donald, the Don.
Correct.
So in Queensland, Deb Freklington, who's not well known, but the electorate will look at her and say she seems a reasonable person. She's got experience. The party's under reasonable control. They've got moderate voices. They're a sensible Liberal opposition, Liberal national opposition that want to put the budget back into some state of repair, to do something about state debt, which is out of control in Queensland. But they'll look at the Premier and decide to vote against the government. So the answer is the opposition leader poll only needs to stand up. That's all.
Right. Okay, cool. That's why I just wanted people to understand when you see those numbers, because the undecided number at the moment is growing in the national polls too. That's a thing worth talking about, always looking, because about the overall health of things one way or the other.